Staff Sergeant Jason Morgan enlisted in the United States Air Force in 1989. After several years of intense physical and mental training, Jason qualified as a member of an elite special operations unit that provided meteorological and combat support for special operations behind enemy lines. In 1999, with only a few days left of his deployment, Jason was a part of a mission in the Andes Mountains in which his car lost control. The car went off a narrow dirt road and over a cliff, throwing Jason from the moving vehicle and landing him face down in a muddy ditch. The road to recovery for Jason has been long and daunting, but with all the challenges he has faced over the past 17 years, he still has an incredible thirst to live an adventurous life and never allows himself to be a victim of his circumstance.
So you have stated Air Force Weather School is one of the hardest military courses there is. Can you tell us about what a combat weatherman does and your path to become one?
Sure, and that's where I almost had to make notes because it's been so long ago. But so basically, our job, we're part of the Air Force Special Operations, and we provide meteorological reconnaissance and combat operations behind enemy lines. And we also help with mission planning because everything has to deal with the weather. So that's basically in a nutshell, but we'll do everything from like tide data to currents and swells to, if there's fog, when it's going to be, because we want to use weather as our asset. So if we plan to know when the weather is, we can use it to help our mission and not to hurt us, So it's a very challenging job. I believe when I was in there was only 72 of us that wore the gray beret, the combat weather team. But as far as going through the school, it's a difficult school because weather school itself is one of the hardest schools, like mentally, and then physically, it's one of the hardest schools too. So you got to be both. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to find. You have to be nerdy enough to make it through the meteorological school, but dumb enough to want to jump out of airplanes and do all the other stuff. But as far as the path goes to get in there, first they go through a selection course, which is the basic course to see if you're physically fit and able. And then you go through a weather school, which is like 30 weeks, which is like 8 hours a day, 4 hours of homework every night. In fact, in my class, I think three of us out of the 16 actually, finished on time with the course, And then you go through the Army Airborne School, the jump school. And then you go through like water survival school, land survival school, and all that stuff. And then you go through the combat control school. And after that, school is when we get our gray beret. And then after all that, which is like a little over a year, then we go through our special tactics training where we put all of it together and work with different assets. And that's like a year to year and a half long. So
Wow.
all in all, it's like 3 to 3.5 years long. So it's quite a school. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's the path.
Okay. It's crazy, but it's a good path. So
it is a good one.
Weatherman or whatever, weather school, do you consider that when it comes to like the military the same as a meteorologist?
It is. So in fact, the meteorologists that not in special operations, but they want to become a regular meteorologist in the Air Force and they have a degree in meteorology, they still go through part of some of our courses to go through there. So yeah, it's very similar. We don't have like all the math that they have to take and the extra curriculum, but I could just as easily work at a weather station or work for the Weather Channel or anything with the skills that I had.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, very similar.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, except they don't have the combat courses,
Right, of course. Yeah, I interviewed Ginger Z. She's a meteorologist. Anyways, just curious.
Yeah.
So in the late 1990s, you served with the Night Stalkers, 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, or SOAR. So I've read that part of their motto is "Death waits in the dark." What was the driving force behind you wanting to join this elite team?
Well, so at first I was working with the Army Special Forces, the Green Berets, and the Night Stalkers is I was Air Force, but I worked for the Army, or as attached to the Army. The Night Stalkers, if you remember the Black Hawk Down, they were the helicopters used. They're also the helicopters that brought in the SEAL team to get bin Laden. So they do all this special operations, and we only do it at night. We have black helicopters. That's why for the motto. But I just always wanted to get better at my job. I was never really content. So it just seemed like the next step to move forward. And then from there, that's when I got hurt working with that unit. But from there, I was wanting to work with some more elite units. I just always wanted to get better and always wanted to improve myself, and I always wanted to challenge myself. So it was kind of a progression.
Yeah. Well, challenging yourself or challenging anyone. I mean, anyone challenging themselves is always a good thing, both from mental, physical, you name it standpoint. It can be hard, but it's like going out of your comfort zone. I like everything to be the same. Because I do like to challenge myself, but going out of my comfort zone can be quite daunting at times. So
it can be for everybody at times, but yeah,
absolutely.
Teach his own.
Yeah, exactly. So can you tell us about your mission against FARC, the Revolutionary Annual Forces of Colombia, and the night your life changed?
Sure. So it started off during that day. We were over there training the Colombian Special Forces how to combat the FARC. So we go on missions with them, do some training exercises, and we were there for about 30 days. And close to the end of the time period, I think there was only 2 or 3 days left before we were supposed to come back home. One of our helicopters broke down. And so it's like an 8-hour drive from where our base was to one of the main cities, Quito, Ecuador. And we've had problems with guerrilla attacks and different things like that. So they asked for 2 volunteers. So me and my buddy volunteered to ride with the guy to provide security. And I'm still really unclear what happened. All I could say is that I have flashbacks, what I think happened, but I don't remember any of it all. So what I believe happened is that we got attacked again. And what I can remember is that I was hanging out of the vehicle with my weapon, trying to disable the vehicle and the people behind us. And our driver was trying to get away. And I remember both of us telling him to slow down because I thought we were good. They're kind of dirt roads that go in and out of the Andes. So they're very treacherous roads. And he did make one of the corners, and the vehicle started flipping down the ravine. We're like in an SUV. And from there, I flipped out of the vehicle, and then the vehicle rolled over the top of me and crushed my back. And to make matters worse, I was face down in the water, unable to move, broken back, and also unable to breathe. I was very fortunate. American missionary that was in Ecuador was checking on one of his antenna sites, and he saw the vehicle down there. And he said him and his guys, they didn't know if it was a new accident site or not. So they decided to go down there and check. And he said the way that he found it, easiest way to get down the mountainside, I believe I heard they actually stepped on me. That's why he found me, because I was, in the water and covered with mud. That's the way he found me. And then he turned me over, and I was able to start breathing again. My injuries were pretty severe. And so he decided he called the embassy to let us know the embassy didn't even know we're even there, because it's, our missions are black ops, which no one pretty much knows about. So when he was calling so he called to get an ambulance, and the ambulance said it'd be about 3 hours before they got there. We're pretty remote. He said, I don't think this guy has 3 hours, talking about me. I was barely breathing. I had one lung that was filling up with water. I think another one that was collapsed or getting ready to. So we decided to meet us halfway. He took us all in the van, and we met the ambulance halfway. And as soon as we met the ambulance, I stopped breathing and had to insert a chest tube and reinflate my lungs. So, and it kind of goes on and on like that. I was very fortunate that the Air Force and the Army was able to get a medevac plane to me pretty quick. In fact, they had a hard time with that because they couldn't send like a medevac plane that said U.S. Army or Air Force on it, because we weren't supposed to be there. So they had to find a generic jet and medevac it out, and then get us and bring us back. And so some of it, I slipped into a coma. Some of it was induced. I believe most of it was induced. And that's when I woke up about 2 months later, with the doctor saying, you're lucky to be alive, but you'll never walk again. So it was, I wish I could remember more. Fortunately, my parents gave me a lot of the information when the book was written and everything, that I was able to finally read like 15 years later. But yeah, it's maybe it's good that I don't remember a lot of it, so.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's life altering. So you're paralyzed from the waist down.
I am, yes.
Okay. So what was, if any, the rehabilitation process like when you came out of the coma? And then we'll get into your job, but then how did the process of having a companion or a service dog, I should say, come into play? Because not everyone is like you, who's paralyzed from the waist below, has one.
Right. So it was, at first when I got into the hospital and I kind of woke up, I realized what was going on. Then they sent me to a rehab hospital. And I was still pretty sick because when I told you I was face down, I was like in this contaminated water. So I had like bacteria and stuff that they didn't even know, what it was. And so I got sick a lot, and I wasn't really, at first, I just didn't really want to do the physical therapy that it required. I was pretty frustrated. I lost about, I think like 40 pounds or something while I was in the hospital, just going through the shock and just through the feeding tube. So I was pretty weak, obviously, too. And I just was not motivated. I just couldn't believe how my life in Innocent completely changed. And, I remember I just thought that I didn't know anyone that was in a wheelchair besides like, an elderly person. So I just imagined my life just being pushed around in a wheelchair, in this big, heavy wheelchair. I had no idea that I could have any life, from a chair. And so I just really didn't see what the point was of going through the therapy. And finally, this guy that was on the wheelchair basketball team, which I didn't know they even had that. He came into my room and he says, "Hey, I heard you, just got here and have some trouble." He goes, "I just want you to know that, maybe when you get better, you can play on the basketball team with us. And, it's pretty cool, bunch of great guys." And so I saw in this like really cool titanium chair or aluminum or whatever it was. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool looking. And then when he left, he was kind of like did a wheelie and spun out went the other way. And I was like, wow, he can do that in a chair. Like I couldn't believe the way he could maneuver. And, I wish I remember that guy's name, but that's what gave me the motivation to start my therapy and do things again. And, I always thought about that too, is because we never know the difference we can make in someone's life. He has no idea what he did to me and what he did for me. And I wish I could thank him. But maybe I'll run into him one day. But it was then that I started my training, and I was there for like 4 weeks. I did it a lot faster than most people did. I just tried to learn how to operate from a wheelchair. It was difficult, but, they just, but they had a pretty good therapy program. Like they even had an apartment you stayed in, so you did the cooking and stuff and practice, stuff like that. But everything in my life changed, every single, so that it took years and years to still get through. I'm still learning things from a chair, but yeah, it was a long road. It was a long process, and but it was something that I knew I needed to do. I had a family and 3 very young boys at the time. And, I was like, I just need to be a father to these boys, and I need to get healthy and ready for them. That was my biggest motivation, at the time. So.
Absolutely. And I remember, at the time, from a video that I saw of you, or an interview, at the time you were a single father, correct?
Yeah, I was shortly after. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that must have been.
I was married at the time, but yeah, I was single shortly after. Yes.
Okay. Because no. Because I'm saying just from that standpoint, that provides extra challenges.
It did, and so yeah, I was getting ready to come home from the hospital. I had to go back in the hospital for like 11 months,
Oh, wow.
And she let me know right before I was being discharged that she wanted a divorce, that she met someone else. And
not a fun process.
Yeah,
right at the wrong time, right?
Yeah, but it worked out in the end. It ended up being a blessing in disguise. But and then she said, "You're gonna have to find another place to live, and I'll give you some time." And I think she forgot who I was, that I still had that fight in me, because in the 3 months that she wanted time for me to move out, she was the one that moved out with her guy, and I stayed there with the kids.
Right.
So at first she was expecting to get the kids in the house and everything. And, and she didn't get any of it.
Mhm.
And it was, like I said, the boys is what motivated me really to keep me going, you know. So it was definitely a blessing in disguise, you know. And if that was the case, and might as well just end it then instead of wait years down the road and find out, you know. I mean, we don't even have to go into there, but it was a blessing in disguise.
Of course. How old are your boys now, if you don't mind me asking?
They are 25, 24, and 23.
Okay.
And I got some new recruits that I can talk about here at the end. So
Yeah, no. Oh no, but that's nice, you know, and talking about in terms of, you know, obviously you grew up, I mean, obviously you were, you know, obviously injured, and you obviously, you know, I don't want to say trained them, but you parented them. And now they probably, we can discuss this later, but they look down on you. I mean, it's an inspiration as to how far you've come and what you've done in your life. And anyways, as a child, I would think it's very inspiring.
I hope they think that. No,
What?
they're good. I said I hope they think that. And
Oh, I'm sure
it
they
is.
do, regardless, especially if you're in your 20s, or especially if they're in college or just graduated college and starting work. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I don't want to put words into their mouths or like your mouth. I'm just making a general.
No, they are, and they're appreciative. But you know, that's all they've known. They've only known me
Oh,
from
right,
here.
exactly.
So.
And in some ways, I do think that can be a blessing, but also it can be heartbreaking when you're younger, and you know, you see other fathers that are, you know, walking, and you know, and unfortunately, you know.
Yeah, and it made it tough. There was, you know, there was a lot of frustrations. Like I couldn't take them to certain places, and you know, I started actually coaching some of their sports and football and stuff. But like if it rained, I couldn't even barely move on the grass and stuff.
Right.
And you know, you know, I always thought that that maybe they were missing out, you know, because of things I couldn't do. But you know, I think they might have had it better just because I was retired from the military and had the income that after work, and I was there all the time. Like I never missed a football game, and I never missed an event, and I was always there for them. So, you know, there's a lot of things that you know, that I couldn't do, you know, and just even picking them up when they were younger, you know, it was even hard to do. But you know, we played football, we just played in the street, you know, and just hopefully no cars, or the traffic wasn't bad, you know. I mean, that's just what we had to do. So we just had to make changes.
Right.
And so I think for lacking of all the things that I couldn't do, there was a lot more things that I could do. So, and that's what I always tried to look at, the positive, right?
Of course, absolutely, the positive. So during your recovery, you learned about Canine Companions for Independence, or Canine Companions. You said the name changed. It's an organization specifically for service dogs. What was the precursor or the deciding factor for you to go to them and ask for a service dog?
Well, it was kind of it was nothing that I was really looking for. I went to I think I was in a national ski event, downhill slalom. I do, like, you know, water skiing, snow skiing, and play golf. I do a whole lot of sports. That's kind of, actually I played on the military Paralympic team. And while I was there, we were in a hotel, and this guy he was a quadriplegic, you know, paralyzed, you know, broke his neck, and he had a service dog. And I've always been a dog lover. So anytime that he had his event, his downhill slalom event, I'd watch his dog for him. His name was Hunter. And I just thought, or Ranger, I think his name was Ranger. And I just loved it. His dog was so amazing. And so I'm like, that'd be cool to have a dog, but I thought I was too independent. I'm like, if I'm a single dad and raise kids, they're not gonna let me have a dog. And I just didn't know much about it. And so before I went in the military, I also got my pilot's license, and I worked for an organization called Challenge Air for Kids and Friends. And we flew kids with disabilities. And at one of the booths, Canine Companions had a booth there at one of our fly days. And I saw the dogs. And so they were walking around with the dogs, and I was, you know, definitely intrigued and was playing with the dogs. She goes, why don't you check out our booth and see what we can do? And I'm like, I said, yeah, they're not going to give me a dog. I'm like, I just said before, I'm too independent. She goes, no, I think you definitely qualify. And I'm like, and then that's when I got excited about it. And So I got my application that night, and 6 months later, I went up to, I live in Dallas. 6 months later, I went to San Diego, their nearest facility, and stayed there for 2 weeks and got my first service dog. And it was better than I could ever imagine. I love dogs, but I had no idea the impact that they would have on my life.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they make a huge impact. I love my dog. I mean, it's not a service
do.
dog.
It's still just a dog alone can make a
Yeah,
huge.
no, that's what I'm saying. Just
Right.
a dog alone, it's wonderful. So,
And it's hard to tell if it's the tasks I do or the companionship. It's pretty evenly
of course,
placed, So, and me being able to take my dog everywhere I go
absolutely.
is pretty awesome.
So, what tasks does your dog help you with?
There are so many. We don't use all
Just
of them.
give us, I don't know, the top three, I should say.
No, it's okay. I can go through them pretty quick. So I had to go to school there for 2 weeks to learn about what the dog could do and train with the dog. It's a great organization. And so I worked with like 3 or 4 dogs, and they matched the dog that best suited my personality. And so, but these dogs, they can turn light switches on and off. They'll retrieve objects. He can pull my wheelchair. He can get the clothes out of the washer or the dryer. I'm looking at him right now. He hasn't learned how to fold them yet, but we're working on that one. He can hit like the buttons that open up the doors, like you see the wheelchair plates that you can push, and basically almost be trained to do anything. So it's a lot like if I transfer out of my wheelchair and rolls away, you can grab my wheelchair and bring it back. It's a lot. So I'm sure there's several more, but yeah, it's amazing what, even like when we're ready to go and I drop, like I'll tell him to get his leash, he'll pick up his leash and hand it to me, when it's attached. Just don't have to bend over. But, but even from there, you go a little bit further, like, Yago is a new dog for me now, and we're still in training. I think, it's something you have to keep working at. These dogs are trained, but then you want to train them to match your lifestyle. So like right now, I'm trying to teach them between like stuff that I normally need to get, like my shoe, or I'm an amputee, so I'll say shoe, not shoes, but shoes or socks, or like my phone. So he knows that to distinguish the difference between them. Because if you tell him to get, he'll just kind of grab whatever right there on the ground and give it to you and put it in your lap. So it's kind of an ongoing training and stuff to kind of match your lifestyle. And like when I go out a certain door, he can grab a rope attached to it and shut it behind me, different things like that. So, and just knowing like when to do it. And, these dogs are so good that, like I said, I'm still working with Yago now, but you kind of adapt them to your lifestyle, and it gets to be almost where you don't even have to say the commands. They just know, It's really amazing.
Oh no, for sure. So, and then obviously the companionship to go outside and all of that is amazing. And that's kind of a given from.
It is. Yeah. It really is amazing. It's a life changer. Absolutely.
I totally agree. So for the commands, you just talk in like normal language and he understands?
Yeah, so they're usually like one word commands. Like usually I'll say his name first, so that knows he's got his attention,
right?
And he's listening. So like if I want him to close the door, where he'd have to like push it close, it'd just be Yago push, and usually he'll be lined up with the door, so it'd be easy for him to do. Or if I drop somebody, Yago get. So usually they're just one word commands. Yeah, but then you learn other stuff that kind of fun stuff like like. Not fun stuff like Yago, go to your bed, and he'll like go to his bed there, or do different things, or get the remote. So that's where we're trying to add words after it, like get the remote or get my phone.
Right.
And he knows easily, as long as you have him in the same spot, mostly he kind of knows, where to look and stuff. So
what type of dog is it?
He's a mostly black lab. He's about 90% black lab. And
okay. I mean, I don't know what types of dogs, because every organization provides different types of dogs.
They do. And Canine Companions has their own breeding program. So they use Labrador retrievers and golden retrievers. And some are full bred and some are mixed. I think they believe the mix makes a really good combination. So
I think so.
Yeah.
Sadie, my dog, she's a golden doodle. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, she's a mix, and it's great. I think I think the personality is a little bit different in a good way. Some of them are hypoallergenic. Obviously everyone's different, but black labs are great. So can you explain what the process was like to get one of these dogs? Clearly, it's a very competitive process, and I'm sure not everyone can get a dog. They have to
Right. And which is good because, Canine Companions gives the dogs free of charge to the
So you get the
recipients.
dog free of charge too.
Yeah, what's that? Yeah. So, but when around $50,000 goes into a dog, you need to be diligent with the donors and the people and everything that you're using this money wisely and not just someone who's not going to use it. So, the process first, they make sure that you qualify with your disability and get a dog. And now they do PTSD dogs too. And I don't know everything about them, but like they'll go in and turn all your lights on before you go into your apartment or house or different things. And like I said, I'm not really sure everything they do, but it's pretty amazing. So they want to make sure you qualify. Then they want to make sure you have the means to take care of the dog that you have. And you could still live in an apartment, but they obviously they like for you to have a yard and stuff, but they want to make sure that dog has access to grass and be able to use the bathroom and stuff. And you want to have the financial means to take care of it. Then they want to find out more about you because they want to match. They already want to start pairing you when thinking about the dogs that they're training now. So you kind of write an essay about yourself and what you need the dog for. And then I think one of the last processes is that you meet one of the trainers and you work with one of the dogs. That way you can see if you can actually give them the right commands and work with them a little bit. And then you're really from there, once you just are waiting for a slot to open up in the school. And they have 5 facilities around the US. They have one near me now, which is great. And then you go for your 2-week training and have their own apartments at their facility that are really nice. So everything is done right there. It's a really, really good organization. And, I think I'm very fortunate that was the organization that I picked because I didn't even know, that they were the ones that were at the fly show that I was at. So.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of canine, organizations, whether it be for seizures. I mean, it can be all for different types in canine.
It can be.
For independent.
And there are some that like train your own dogs, which, I don't think you want that. If your dog's a good pet, let it be a pet. But I'm saying for your situation different if you want, a companion dog or something, but that's just my opinion. It's just because like if they're dogs, they train them for 2 years and only 40% of their dogs make it through. That's how. Of
course. Yeah, it's a very rigorous program. All right, you just broke up on me. Jason? All right, let me just write.
I just switched my internet.
No, it's okay.
I switched from one internet to the other. I think we're good now. So
don't
we have bad weather here.
I don't even worry about it. I totally get it.
Yeah, you froze right when I was talking. So I'm glad this is live and it's edited right. Good thing about editing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the importance of editing and having that. So no problem. All good. All right. So what was your inspiration to write the book A Dog Called Hope, A Wounded Warrior, and the Dog That Saved Your Life?
Well, actually, I was kind of against it at first.
Okay.
So, it's not like I went out there and like, oh, I should write a book about all this. I mean, I never even thought anything of that, not even close to even thinking anything like that. Damian Lewis, who had written many books, some bestsellers, he lives in London, and he was a war correspondent, so he knew the military, and he also had some experience with some service dogs. And he saw my story. We were I think it was Yukonuba was doing a program about amazing dogs, and they did a segment on my dog and I, really on my dog, not really me. And so we were featured on that, and it aired in England, and he saw it. And so he tried to contact me and saying, hey, I'm Damian Lewis. Here's some of the books I'm writing. So he showed me some examples, and I'd like to write your story. And I told him, I said, I'm flattered and everything, but I think you're wasting your time. I don't think there's a book here. And I'm very glad I didn't listen to him, or I'm glad he didn't listen to me, I guess I should say. So we talked for about the next 6 months, and kind of talked on the phone several times to kind of just to hear him to get more of my story and stuff. And he definitely wanted to go ahead with the book. And I'm like, well, okay. So he flew from London to Dallas for 3 weeks, and we just worked night and day. And that was the initial startup on the book. And so I guess it's like a summary of the book, and sent that to the publishers. The publisher, they're in England, Quercus, loved it, gave us a nice advance, and finished writing the book. And since then, now it's been published in, I think, 5 countries, including Russia, and it's done really well. So again, I'm glad he didn't listen to me when I said, I think you're wasting your time. So, but you know what, Damian Lewis is a great writer. He was able to get information out of me that that I forgot about, or stuff that I didn't think that was very interesting, that found out that most people did, because I didn't live a very ordinary life. Mm-hmm. And also during the time when I was in my coma and recovery, those are things that I never knew about when I was in my coma, and I was like day to day. And my parents never talked about it, but in my family, but my mom took notes. And so I think that was a good healing time, because I was actually able to read some of the stuff that happened and what my parents went through. I mean, I just can't imagine. I'm, going through, when your son is day to day, and the things that happened. And there was even a story where my twin sister saved my life. I was in the hospital. It was crazy, everything that happened during that 2-month time. And I think it was good healing for all of us, I think, to read it. It was hard to read, but and then, and tragically, my dog Nepal passed away. I had to euthanize him the next day. He had developed cancer. So the very next day that Damian got there, it was definitely quite a 3 weeks that we got to know each other pretty well. At least he got to know me, because he was asking me other questions. But I guess basically that's how the story got going. And then it took, I think, publishing like a year later or something like that. And so he'd come back down again to revise and saying, hey, look at this. And I would make changes, and he'd want to talk about some other stuff. So we spent another couple of weeks together, like about 4 or 5 months, 3 or 4 months later. And then he went back and finished the book, and it just went from there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have the book. I've yet to read it. I've read so many books for all my different interviews, so I can't get through everyone right on time.
I hope to read it one day soon too. So
we'll see. And I will read it. It looks like it looks and sounds like an amazing book. So
yeah, he did a really good job. I was very impressed with it was just, I think he was the perfect person to write the book.
Mm-hmm,
so I'm glad he found me.
Yeah, no, and that's, I think, the most important thing.
It is,
So during your motivational speaking engagements, you advocate for CCI and the importance of service dogs. In your opinion, why is it necessary for people with mental and or physical disabilities to have a highly trained service dog?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and I think you can relate to this, is that when you have an injury like mine, you lose a lot of your independence. And so that's what you're always trying to gain, is you want your independence back. You don't want to have to rely on other people.
Of course not.
But one thing, it's a lot easier for me to ask. I mean, I love asking my dog to do something. Much easier than asking a person to do it. That's one reason. But two is that I've done some, if I would have found out when I woke up from my coma and found out that I was getting paralyzed and live the rest of my life from a chair, and someone was to tell me everything I'm not bragging or anything, I'm just making I'm really bragging about the service dogs here, is that everything I was able to accomplish and do, I'd be like, there is no way. And, go back and looking at it, a lot of the stuff I couldn't have done without the inspiration from my service dog. When I spoke at a graduation ceremony, when other guys were getting their service dogs, I said one of the biggest things is don't put limits on yourself nor your dog. There's no plateauing. There's no going up and getting better and then plateauing and just kind of staying the same. I mean, for some people said they might be content with that, but I've always tried to maintain and reach new goals, and my dog has helped me every step, or I guess I should say every roll of the way, right? But yeah, these dogs, it just they allow you to do things that you never thought you could do, and not just from a physical standpoint by helping you out, but from a mental standpoint, just giving you the confidence and the companionship and everything that. So even mentally, I'm stronger and able to do more. So yeah, that's what I told the people that are graduating. I said, you would really do harm if you put limits on what you can do. Now that you have a service dog, and it's just like there's nothing impossible.
Right.
I mean, obviously, I was just talking to my wife a minute ago, and obviously saying walking right now is impossible and things like that. But like setting goals in life and reaching them, knowing that reachable goals. I mean, nothing's impossible. I mean, we didn't talk about it, but one thing I always wanted to do was do a marathon. And so when I got hurt, I was 29 when I got hurt. And in my special opportunity, I was supposed to run 30 miles for your 30th birthday. So I'd already been training which is more than a marathon by almost 6 miles. So I've been training to do that. And then I got hurt. And then, so that was always in the back of my mind. I want to do a marathon. And I really thought at first that they were going to find a cure for paralysis, and I was going to train and actually do a marathon. And, after 10 years, I knew that's probably not going to happen. So I got me a racing chair and started training to a marathon then. And then, pushing a chair 26.2 miles, I believe is not an easy feat. And so when I was training to do it, I trained for about 5 months and had to do a lot of physical. I had to really put a lot more strength in my arms and stuff, and to push a chair there. And then 6 weeks I guess it was more like maybe it was like 4 to 6 weeks before I was supposed to do the marathon, I had my right leg amputated. It was from a blister. It didn't heal, and found out the bone was amputated. I want to make this too long, but so I had to go in the hospital and get my leg amputated. And obviously everyone thought I had sponsors that was sponsoring for this marathon. It was the Marine Corps marathon. And they're like, hey, don't worry about the marathon. We'll sponsor you again next year. Just get better. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm still going to do it. And kind of, you were talking about the dog. And when I was in there, the doctor told me that, I thought they were just going to have to do quick surgery on my heel, and that would be it. I'd be in the hospital for a few days, no big deal. When he told me that the bone was infected, this is what Christopher Reeve died from. This is pretty serious, that you have two choices. One is that you can go in the hospital and it might take a year, but we might not be able to save your leg with heavy antibiotics. And I spent 33.5 years total in the hospital. The combined time, I did not want to go that route. Said, or we can amputate your leg. And I was like, wow. Because I learned to walk a little bit with long-legged braces. It wasn't practical, but I could do a little bit. And I was devastated. And my dog Nepal was right there with me. And I didn't even give him the command, which is called lap, but he jumped right up in my lap and just kind of looked at me like he knew that I was upset. Dogs, I think, can sense that, especially when you're with them 24/7. And so I'd almost make Yago do it, but he's sleeping right here. Come here, buddy. And so I got up on my lap, kind of like, you know what, we can do this. And so I decided it's like my decision is not whether to keep my leg or not. I know that they have to amputate my leg. That was my decision, is that, am I going to go back into that dark world where I was first injured? Or am I going to concentrate on my dreams and get this leg taken and do the marathon? And I ended up doing the marathon, and like I said, I do not, let me see if I can get Yago. Yago, come here, lap. Right here, buddy. I don't have his leash on. Yago, up, lap. So here's Yago.
Hi.
Hey,
What's his name again?
Yago.
Yago. Do you name him?
No, so he was named as a puppy. His original name was Iago, but it was kind of hard to pronounce, and so we just changed it to Iago for short. So, but yeah.
How old?
All right, buddy. So can you look this way? This is the camera here. All right.
How old is he?
He is almost 3.
Oh,
He'll be
he's
3
still
next
a
month.
baby. Okay.
He is,
He's
yeah.
almost 3 too.
So I just got, oh, that's awesome. So I just got him back in October. But anyway, he went in my lap like that, just kind of gave me a kiss. And, I just knew that we could do it. I don't think I could have done that marathon without my service dog, just from the mental and physical, in the emotions and everything else. It was a lot. And I remember when I finished that marathon, and I didn't do it nearly the time that I wanted to. I mean, I spent over a week or 10 days in the hospital. I had major surgery. And then, so a lot of the training when you're in the hospital like that and not do anything for 2 weeks right before the marathon, you lose a lot of your training. So, but anyway, it worked out. And of course it was during rain and thunderstorms and right after Hurricane Sandy. So it was, I just had to make it as hard on me as possible. But, that's just one big example. But that's what I mean about not putting any limits. That was something that, I think even the doctor, no one could believe that I still want to do this marathon. And, it was in DC and I did it.
Yeah.
So.
It's amazing.
Right. And I think a lot of people out there think that, I'm too, like I first thought, I'm too independent for a dog, or I don't want to take a dog away from someone else that really needs it. There's enough dogs out there, especially I know with canine companions. And it's just like, I tell them, like, I thought the exact same thing, and it's the best decision I've ever made in my life. So if you want to get better, you might think you're great, but if you want to improve and even get better, then get you a great service dog. There's, I can speak highly for canine companions. I can't about other organizations, but yeah, they're amazing what they can do. And I go, he's getting, come here, buddy. But yeah, they're absolutely amazing.
Yeah. No, I agree. Something that I know you talked about Christopher Reeve for a second, correct? Yes. So just so you know, you can look it up on my website, but I actually interviewed Will Reeve on his dad.
Oh, did you? Wow.
Yeah, and the Christopher Reeve Foundation, and we talked about the cure for paralysis and the specific program. It's up on the website now, so
oh yeah,
by all means, check it out. He was a lovely guy. Well, we all know that as well.
Yes.
It's new one, anyways. It was a fun interview, so yeah, definitely check it out if you're interested.
I bet. So yeah, I imagine it'd be pretty amazing when your dad is Superman, right?
No, I know.
Both in on the movie screen and in real life.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So I guess this really is the last question. But can you provide some type of teaching moment that you've learned about, through your journey of, your accident and, the people that have really made an impact in your life, including your service dogs?
Yeah, I will. And, one of the, something happened about 3 months ago that I never thought would happen again. And I got married and have an amazing wife. She's been so inspiring in my life. And so now that's what I said. I have some new recruits. You talked about the 3 boys. Now I have 5.
That's great.
So, and 2 of them are in the military. My stepson and my son are both in the Air Force.
There you go. They take after their dad.
They did, even though they did that before I even, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, my son did, but my stepson, he went to the Air Force Academy, and yeah, amazing guy. All 5 of them are amazing. But, I think as far as a teaching tool, and I kind of talked about it a little bit before, but, one thing is to put the right tools in your life, like service dog and the right equipment. My faith was very strong for me. My family is so supportive, of what I did. I don't know how I could have done it without them.
It's really important.
And, I look back and, I think that a lot of my, like my dad always wanted me to go as far as I can to make the most of myself. And then I think that went into the military and then going to special operations and stuff and trying to make that next level and going through some of the hardest courses and everything. And then that translated better going into my injury is that I didn't want to quit. I wanted it to push on. So it all kind of related back to my dad and my family, that, that training that my dad first got me to where I was in special operations, got me to where I am now. And he's been a big inspiration in my life, and as well as my entire family. I'm really close to my brother and my twin sister and my mom, and now, with my wife, Kim. I think it's important to surround yourself with the people that love you and support you. I think it's also important to get, like I said, get the right tools, like the service dog and the right equipment. And you don't want to do anything life is hard enough from a chair. You don't want to do anything to hurt yourself. Right. So, make the most of what you got. And just like I talked about earlier when I spoke to the Canine Companions graduate group, is don't put any limits on yourself. And even if they're small goals, like I got to where I wanted, and then I set another goal, a small goal, but and like the marathon didn't just start when they wanted to do a marathon. I started doing, 5Ks and then 10Ks. And then, I did a few halves, and I did, it didn't just start with there. It just started setting small goals that just built up on one another. And every once in a while I find myself kind of stagnant and not going anywhere. And that's kind of where, like, all right, I need to find something to get me going. So I'm getting ready to start playing tennis now. So we'll see how that goes. But it's always good to keep yourself active. I think there was a lot of times when I first was injured that I didn't have a reason to get out of bed. So I didn't. My dog made it to where I had to get out of bed every day. And I always wanted to go out and do something with my dog. That was a big help in my life. So I think that's the best lesson I can, that I could give. So
great advice.
Thank you.
And so, no, absolutely. And so what occupies your time these days? Obviously sports. I mean, I know you just got married, your kids are in the military, or with some of them. So what do you do, like, on a daily basis? Or what have you been doing other work, or?
Yeah. So right now with,
well, and then I know we've been dealing with COVID.
You're right. And so, there wasn't much going on. I'm probably the only one that I don't have a honey-do list, because I've had all the time to get everything done. It always seems like there's something, but, it was weird because I did a lot of trips and speaking events, and all that just dropped. I mean, just in like a matter of like a week.
Right.
But now, so, during that time I was trying to get my website, got it redesigned, and now my whole speaking event, sorry, moving the camera.
Okay, you're fine.
Is completely different. So I've been working on that. And
nice.
So now we got some upcoming trips, out of state trips that are going on, and got a whole lot of events coming up. So I've been really working hard on doing that, training Yago, which I need
that's fun.
Yeah, keep doing a little bit more of.
Yeah.
So, it's not, I think, anything big. It's just like a lot of little things. I find myself staying pretty busy most of the time. So.
I mean, you have to. I mean, it's a nightmare. Like I said, one of my best friends is from Dallas, or actually, Houston, but is from Texas. But I mean, I'm in New York City. I mean, kind of the hub of everything, and things are getting better. But I mean, I don't know what specifically it's like in Texas, but now there's there's not a mask mandate. There's you have to show proof of vaccination when you go into restaurants now. I'm vaccinated, so it's not a problem. But I'm just saying, with the Delta variant, so like things are a little bit better, but like I still feel like things are still like a little bit shut down. And I mean, I live with my dog, and I have my own apartment, but like I moved back home during the pandemic because I didn't want to be alone and not dating anyone. So I mean, I don't know. We're living in a crazy world, but I think
we are.
The fall in 2022, I think, are going to be great years, or knock on wood, let's hope. So not everything has to be a Zoom.
Yeah, I know. Zoom.
I know, it's awful. I know.
Yeah, we have no choice. We live,
of course,
different parts of the country, but yeah, as far as like doing this, when I speak, I'm kind of sarcastic. I put a lot of jokes in there, and like I don't know if they're laughing or just kind of just sitting there, like this. You have no idea.
You're great.
You can't read the audience, but thanks. And it's just good to start speaking live again. you know, and getting out there and seeing the people. And in fact, I just got a call yesterday to do an event at a conference, and the theme was "Don't Stop Believing," and she thought I'd be good for that, especially with the pandemic, because you know, you see a lot of these a lot of the military movies. It's kind of like the guy has PTSD and the troubles and issues he has, and things like that, and which is, you know, which is tragic. But you know, mine's a success story. Mine's overcoming adversity, and I think it's a good book, and not just book, but for speaking events too. I think it's a good message for people to hear. You know, that no matter, it seems like how bad things are, it seems like there's a way out, and you can overcome the obstacles. So I hope that's the message that I can get. And I'm not saying mine's worse than anyone else. It's kind of
different.
It is different. It's but I hope they see, well, you know, hey, if Jason was able to get out of that, hopefully I can get out of what I'm going through too. So
yeah, and I also think it's really unique that, obviously, I mean, you're not the only one that has a service dog and, you know, preaches on having a service dog, but there are tons of people that would benefit from service dogs, and they don't either know or in the impact, and are not getting service dogs. I mean, it's interesting. My dad's had a few strokes. He has a blood clotting disorder, and he's a big finance guy, and just kind of was like, screw it, I'm gonna do whatever I want. Didn't want to listen to doctors. Anyways, to long story short, he has significant vision and memory deficits, and he does have 24-hour nurse care. I mean, he can walk and talk, but it's just, you know, it's a very repetitive conversation. Anyways, he needs help with walking and so forth. But, you know, I mean, my dad could definitely have a seeing eye dog, and it would change his life. He wouldn't do that. But
well, when I first got my first dog, Nepal, in I believe it was 2009, there was very few people that had service dogs.
Of course.
You know, now you see a lot more.
Oh, there's a lot of people. Yeah. A lot of people.
Yeah, so it's definitely getting better. But when I went to Europe for our book tour, because I told you our book first came out there, they had no service dogs, and I had to explain to them my dog and what it was, and they were really good about it. They're like, okay, well, I remember going into a shop, and they said, well, the only way, you know, my dog is, you just saw Yago, and my other dog, Nepal, is a little bit bigger. He's about 75 pounds. He says, well, we don't allow dogs in here. And I'm like explaining, like, this is an actual service dog. Like, he does things for himself. Allowed. But, well, this was in Europe, so I didn't really know the
right. No, I know, but.
So they didn't know much about him. And he goes, well, as long as you're allowed to have a dog in here, as long as you can carry it. So do you think your dog can get in your lap? And I like looked at him, and I looked at my dog, I looked at him, and I'm like, are you nuts? I mean, seriously.
Right.
You know, so, you know, you never know what to expect. But I know one of the things you asked me, one of the funny stories, if we have time, or you can.
Yeah, we have time. No. Sometimes I don't get through all the questions. Some of them are repetitive, and we get.
Well,
so, no. If you wanted to go ahead, yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, it just reminded. I'm loving on my dog right here. He's out of the picture, but when you have a dog that's, you know, that smart, it's just funny things happen. You know, different things happen, and I remember my favorite story with Nepal was so Nepal learned, like, if he wanted to get his treats, he could open up the pantry drawer, he'd grab his bag of treats, and, you know, he'd bring them to me, or you know, I'd be like right there, and then he would have him shut the door and stuff. But I kind of did it each command separately. I never did it, you know, as a sequence, which we probably could have done if we worked a little harder on it. But you know, I remember that I dropped my shoe and it right underneath the coffee table, and it bounced, like I couldn't have thrown it under there any further, you know, and it was like right in the middle, and the coffee table was like only that far from the ground, the bottom shelf, and there was no way I could get. The only way I could get to it is to back up, buddy. The only way I could get to it was to get out of my wheelchair, which isn't easy, and then grab it, and then, you know, get down on the floor and crawl over there and grab it. And then the hard thing is getting back into my wheelchair from the ground, you know, without using your legs at all, right? So I'm like, you know what? I'll just see if Nepal can get it. So I called him in there and said, Nepal, get my shoe. And he's kind of looking around. I was trying to point, show him where it was, and he finally saw it. He finally like bit down, and he saw it underneath the coffee table. So he couldn't fit under there. So he started kind of working at it and swiping at it. It probably took maybe a minute at least for him to go, and he went to, you know, different sides of the coffee table and stuff. Anyway, he finally got it, and it was like amazing. You know, you know, me a little confidence, right? And you finally, so when they do good things, you praise them. That's what you do. So I'm loving on him, like, oh, you're the best dog in the world. He's like, yeah, I know I am. But all of a sudden he just, you know, I was loving on him, and like, that is so awesome, and really praising him. And then he just left. And I thought, that's weird. He never leaves when I'm loving on him. And I thought I heard like the door open or something. Anyway, he went to the pantry, grabbed his bag of treats, and went and brought them to me.
Oh,
I think he said, I think I deserve a little more than praise on this one. He's never done it since. He never did that before.
oh wow.
Besides giving him the command, and he never did it since. But that's kind of stuff you deal with service dogs like this. You know?
Yeah.
Like he's just sitting here. I don't know if you can see, but he's just sitting here with
No, I can
his head in my lap right there. But
yes. Oh,
yeah,
well, hey, if I lived in Texas, I would definitely come over and we could play with.
Yeah.
We could play with yours. It's great. Really, really great. Well, you're amazing, Jason. This was lovely. Really, really lovely. I think our audience is going to benefit greatly, especially since, you know, a lot of our conversation was also about having a service dog, and that's not a lot that we have right now.